Hello. So today I am going to walk through the different situations in which you will want to change data for your students on the practice test spreadsheets. As you probably know, there have been some changes to the questions on practice tests 1 to 3. Specifically, the harder second modules for reading and writing and math have changed. Like 2 new questions have been added to each of the harder second modules on all 3 of the tests 1 through 3. And so, you know, I decided I needed to keep the original data first and foremost, so that I didn't mess up the data for students who have already taken the tests. And then I have a second copy of the data that I'm using, that we'll be using for the new students and students who have not taken all 3 of the first 3 tests yet. So this is my master data sheet, and the other data sheets that you have for your own students get linked to this data. And so this data, these first 2 sheets are linked to any existing spreadsheets. And so those are unchanged. And now we have question bank data updated 7/20/24 and practice test data updated 7/20/24. And so in the instances where we need the new data and the new questions, we're going to be looking towards these 2 sheets. So if we look at this practice test data sheet, we have some color-coded questions here. And this will also show up on the SAT admin answer analysis. So this is the public version of the spreadsheet that you are able to copy and use with any students. And so this practice test data sheet also has these same highlights. And so the green means that it's a new question that was not previously included in the practice tests. And yellow questions have moved. So they're original questions, but they're in a different position. So in this case, what would have happened is that they removed the original question 16. And then these yellow questions started out as questions 10, and they went from 10 to 15. But in some cases, the reading and writing questions get reordered because the College Board has a specific order of which categories they place in the practice tests. And so that's why they had to move things around. All right, so let's start with the easier cases. First and foremost, if you have a student, such as this one, who has done tests 1, 2, and 3, nothing has to change. So the old data is still relevant for tests 4, 5, and 6. And so no need to change anything in those cases. So I'll get rid of this guy. And the second case is that you have a new student that you don't have a spreadsheet for yet. This SAT answer analysis sheet, that is the public version, that is in the public resources folder, this is now already linked to the new data. So basically, the data, it has this import range function in cell A1. So this is linked to the digital SAT data. So you can see that this link has this ID that starts out with 1XO, and the digital SAT data spreadsheet is 1XO. So what's happening is that this cell is looking at that spreadsheet and bringing in the data from this this range. And so I've basically already changed this to point to the new sheet, the practice test data updated 7/20/24, and so this is already pulling in data from this new spreadsheet, or this new sheet in the spreadsheet. Okay, so new students also, you're good to go with a new copy of the answer analysis. Okay, so then there's a situation where you have a student who you've already created a spreadsheet for them, but they have not done any of tests 1 to 3. Okay, so that means that the new data is relevant for all of the tests, and we can just switch the import range function. So whenever you start a new student, you want to click here or click here to connect the data, and that'll bring all this stuff in. Now at the moment this is the old data, and so basically you can tell it. So on this student, I highlighted the cells that are going to be changing. So this is the old answer to number 5 on module 3 of test 3, and we see that on test 3 module 5 we also have A, so this is currently linked to the old data. And so what we want to do is come over to the far right, so just scroll here or push this right arrow all the way to the right, and we need to change the sheet, the URL for this one and this one. So we don't actually have to change the URL, we have to change the range here. So all you have to do is right here after data, before the exclamation point, add space updated 07/2024, and this should just repopulate with new data, most of which is exactly the same as before. Just 8 questions, I believe, total, or no, 12 questions total, 4 from the 3 tests. And same thing here, we come to cell A1, we come over to the range here, space updated 07/2024. Okay, and we can double check over on SAT 3, our number 3.5 is now answer choice C, whereas before it was A. Okay, so easy enough when the student has not taken any of the tests 1 to 3 yet. They could have taken 4, 5, or 6. That's fine. That data hasn't changed, so all you have to do is switch over to the new data. The significantly trickier situation is when you have a student who has taken some, but not all, of tests 1, 2, and 3. So this student has not taken test 3. So what we need to do is we need to preserve the data for the first 2 tests, but add the new data for the 3rd test. And so in this case, the way to think of it is that all of the data for this entire spreadsheet, whether we're looking at concept worksheets, whether we're looking at the PSAT, whether we're looking at SAT 1 or 2 in this case, or tests 4, 5, or 6, all of the data except SAT 3 is correct for this student, because SAT 1 and SAT 2, they took the test before the change was made in Bluebook. So what I need to do is I need to use the old data for everything except test 3. So the first thing to think about is, okay, most of this data is accurate. And practice test data sheet is a little easier to deal with because everything's in order. Question bank data is trickier because it is not in order. It's actually in order that these questions show up in the question bank. And so you have SAT2, SAT3, SAT1. So we're going to get there, but let's start with practice test data sheet. Okay, the first thing is that if you were to try to change data in here, let's just type something in random, everything's going to disappear. Okay, so it doesn't really help us. Basically what's happening is that this sees that there's data in the area that it needs to fill, and it says, okay, I don't want to overwrite data, so I'm not going to show anything. Okay, so we can't do that. You can just Control-Z that, and there's keyboard shortcuts that are showing up down here if you want to look at it. That little squiggle sign is Command on Mac or Control on PC or Windows computers. So what we need to do instead is first we need to actually copy and paste this data as values. So I'm curious, actually, I have a couple columns hidden here. I'm curious if I do this. I can't really tell if those are selected or not. I guess we're going to try it without unhiding it, and we'll see if it works. So the best way to do this is click on your first cell, hold Shift key, and click on the last column. You do not want to include the blue columns. The blue columns are functions that are used in kind of finding the data. If you do not want to copy and paste those as values, because you would lose kind of the power of the spreadsheet. So from A to J in this case, and then you can do Control-Shift down arrow on a PC or Command-Shift down on a Mac to select all the way down. You could also scroll to the very bottom of this, hold Shift, and click on this cell here. But either way, we're selecting all of the data here. We can do a copy or Command-C and paste special. So we want to paste values only. And that's your keyboard shortcut on a Mac, or it's Control-Shift-V, I believe, on PC. And so we see that the data stays, which is great. And you can confirm that you've done this successfully because in cell A1 there is no longer an import range function. Okay, so like I said, the only data we have to change is SAT3. So what we're going to do is we're going to first filter this by SAT3. So hit this little down arrow, clear the selections, and select only SAT3. Okay, and so now what we need to do is we need to replace this data with the data from the new spreadsheet. So the master copy, as we talked about, or the public copy, has the new data. We can confirm this by looking in cell A1 and seeing that it says practice test data updated 07-2024. We can also filter this by SAT3 by clearing everything out, selecting SAT3. And so now this is the data we actually want to show up for our student here. And so we select SAT3, we select all the way over, I don't think we need the order column. That's interesting. So this is a little different than the spreadsheet that I'm using for my students, but yes, select everything to the white. So you can select everything over to order. And to show the other way to do this, scroll all the way down to the bottom, hold Shift and click the bottom right cell that you want. Okay, and then we're going to copy. I'm going to do Command-C this time. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go to the very top in the very beginning of where we want, and you're going to paste this in. Now what I just realized is if I paste this in, I just pasted one extra column that I don't have, but you will have. So on your version, you will want to copy order, I'm assuming, because I believe you're going to have column order in column K. So just match up whatever you have on your student's sheet. But in this case, I actually need to do this. And hopefully it all shows up right in the right spot. Okay, and it looks good. So very little changed here. I think this was centered. I think that's what out of the corner of my eye I think I saw changed. And so that should be updated now for test 3. And let's go look. So before, the highlighted cell was A. Okay, there's one more thing. So this is actually not importing from the practice test data sheet. It is importing from the question bank data sheet. And so, like I said, this is going to be a little bit more interesting. All right, so I need to filter by SAT3 again. Now, I don't have, on the question bank data, I don't have the SAT3 column like I have here. I have the skill codes, which has SAT3 on the relevant cells. Okay, so I just decided to change something. Basically, there's some limitations with imports where I can't actually sort imported data because it just automatically reverts back to the order of the master data. So basically what I wanted was to be able to get like SAT3 and only SAT3 into my new data. And so I just went ahead and sorted the master data by skill code. And so this is now alphabetized so that all of SAT3 will be next to each other. Now notice it doesn't go SAT3, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. That's because these are not seen as numeric, but they're seen as strings. And so 1.10 comes before 1.2. I guess even if you looked at it as a decimal, that would make sense, but it's not looking at it as a decimal either. So now the question bank data for the public SAT answer analysis sheet is in the order of the skill code alphabetized instead of the order that the question bank displays the questions in. And I've even updated the order here. Not that you can do anything with it anyway, because even if I tried, it's going to snap back to the order of the data. Okay, so, but what that allows us to do is it allows us to come down to SAT3 and select the data for SAT3. So notice, just to kind of confirm that we're copying and pasting the right thing into the right place, notice that I have SAT3 1.1, 1.10, 1.11, and on my student sheet I have SAT3 Math 1.1, 1.10, 1.11. Okay, CC24, CC24. Okay, so we start from the ID, come all the way over. You can go all the way to order if you want. I need to go just to answer. And we come down to SAT3 and all the way down to SAT3 point, reading and writing 3.9 is the last one. And you would click this cell if you want to copy the order, or this cell if you just want the answers. I think the order numbers are going to be the same in this case, but regardless. Okay, I'm going to copy that, bring it over here, start from the ID, paste, and don't deselect. Leave this blue box here for a minute and scroll down And just confirm that we are cutting things off at the correct place. So notice that SAT 4 Math 1.1 is the first question that is not highlighted, meaning that we pasted right up to the correct spot as expected. And so now this student finally has the updated data only for test 3. Test 1 and 2 are left unchanged. If you had a student who had done test 1 but not test 2 and 3, you could highlight everything from test 2, math 1.1, all the way down through test 3, 3.9. Copy that over and you would paste it into SAT 2 math 1.1, starting right there. Okay. So that I know is a little bit more complicated. You do also have the option of, the simpler choice here would be to say, okay, you know what, they've done a couple tests from, they've done test 1 and 2, but I've kind of already gotten the data I needed from that. And so I'm just gonna not worry about the fact that a couple questions are inaccurate on the answer on their past data, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and switch them over to the new data. In which case you would just go to their cell A1 and change question bank data A1 to question bank data updated 07-2024. Just adding that piece into the sheet name, and you would do that for both question bank data and practice test data to make it look like this. Okay, so a few different options. I know this is not the most straightforward thing in the world, so please let me know if you have questions, but hopefully it's not too painful, and have a good day or night.